I've been transmigrated, dropped right into a novel, stuck as Logan Pierce, the token wealthy villain whose fiancé and the hero team up to destroy, leaving him broke, disgraced, and dead. Before I could even process that bombshell, a grating voice sliced through the opulent buzz of my own engagement party. I object. Ava can't marry you. A man in a blindingly white suit, looking like a cheap imitation of a movie star, stormed into the ballroom, making a beeline for the head table. Julian Vance, Ava Sterling's pathetic, freeloading secret boyfriend, and the hero of the original story. The live chat feed in the corner of my vision exploded. Whoa, the classic wedding crash. The hero finally made it. Fight, fight, fight. Get ready for Logan the doormat to roll over again. Julian lunged for Ava's hand, his eyes glistening with a nauseatingly earnest passion. Ava, tell me you don't want this. Did he force you? Is the Pierce family threatening the Sterlings? Ava's face went pale. She flinched back instinctively, her lips trembling, unable to form a word. I shot to my feet. In one fluid motion, I snagged Julian's outstretched wrist. My grip was a vice, and the color drained from his face. Ack, let me go, he yelped, trying to wrench his arm free, but my fingers were like steel clamps. He tried to pull his old routine, puffing his chest out. Pierce, let go of me. You're nothing but a... Julian, my voice was ice, cutting him off mid-sentence. Who gave you the balls to crash my engagement party? Logan, stop it. Ava finally found her voice, still using that old, demanding tone she always took with the original Logan. She rushed forward, ready to intervene. Both of them were still stuck in the old script, where I was the spineless simp who'd do anything for her. They expected me to back down. I didn't even glance at her. My focus was locked on Julian's punchable face. The original Logan was a pathetic pushover. That's how this trash got away with walking all over him. Crack. I didn't give him another chance to spew his nonsense. My other hand balled into a fist and connected squarely with his pretty boy jaw. It was a brutal, heavy-handed punch. His nose exploded in a spray of red, and he staggered backward, crashing over a chair with a sickening clatter. The entire ballroom fell dead silent. Every guest was frozen, staring in stunned disbelief. The chat feed's tone flipped on a dime. HLYST. He just decked him. That punch had some serious heat on it. Hell yeah. I thought he was a doormat. This isn't in the script. Looks like we accidentally tuned into a revenge story, LOL. Julian clutched his face, pointing a shaky finger at me, his words muffled by the blood. Logan, you hit me. So what if I did? I took a step forward, grabbed the lapels of his stupid white suit, and hauled him halfway to his feet. I'm just taking out the trash, and you're the kind of stray dog that needs to learn not to sniff around another man's plate. With that, I swung again, a sharp backhand that cracked across his other cheek. Slap. The sound echoed through the silent hall. Not far away, Ava's father, Richard Sterling, was watching the scene unfold, his expression a mask of pure shock. When Julian had first burst in, Richard's face had tightened with annoyance. But then, like most people in the room, he'd settled in to watch the show, probably assuming I'd be humiliated again and he'd just have to smooth things over later. But the moment I stood up, the moment I moved with cold, precise violence and laid Julian out, Richard's smug little smile froze solid. A corporate shark who'd been swimming in treacherous waters for decades, he was hypersensitive to shifts in power. He could clearly see the predatory coldness in my eyes, something that never existed in the old Logan. It was the raw, undisguised fury of a true predator whose territory had been invaded. This was not the weak, compliant simp who worshipped his daughter. A deep, primal fear seized Richard Sterling. He knew exactly how much power the Pierce family wielded. He knew that if I was genuinely enraged, the Sterlings would be facing a level of ruin they couldn't possibly survive. Aligning with Pierce Corp was their only path forward, and he couldn't let this worthless punk and his foolish daughter burn it all to the ground. He had to choose a side. Immediately, he had to draw a line in the sand and extinguish my anger in the most decisive way possible. Just as Ava screamed, "That's enough! Stop hitting him!" and lunged at me, Richard made his move. He shot forward like a cannonball, moving with a speed that defied his age. His face wasn't just angry. It was a desperate, chalky white, his forehead gleaming with a sudden sheen of cold sweat. He didn't even look at me. His target was Ava. Slap. Before anyone could react, he hit his own daughter. It was a vicious, resounding slap, loaded with all his fear and desperation. The force of it sent Ava stumbling to the floor, her elegant updo tumbling down. She cradled her cheek, staring at her father in utter disbelief as her eyes welled with tears. "Dad, shut your mouth, you shameless girl." Richard pointed a trembling finger at her, his voice cracking with a terrifying mix of fury and fear. "Who told you to associate with this kind of person? How dare you let him cause a scene at Mr. Pierce's engagement party? You've disgraced the entire Sterling family." After savaging his daughter, he instantly turned to me. His furious expression melted away, replaced by an extreme, almost grotesque servility. He bowed so low he nearly folded in half. "And Mr. Pierce, Logan, I am so sorry. It's my fault for failing as a father. I didn't raise her right. I let this piece of garbage get in here and ruin your evening." He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow and continued to plead. "You're a bigger man than this, sir. Please don't be angry. Please don't let this little incident affect the relationship between our two families. I promise this will never, ever happen again. From now on, Ava will be a proper, devoted wife." The chat feed went berserk. DMN, talk about a 180. Worst Dad of the Year award goes to. Is that even his real daughter? Ava had it coming. Don't cheat if you can't face the heat. Boss Logan. I looked down at Richard, groveling in the dust, then glanced at Ava on the floor, her expression shifting from shock to a hollow emptiness. Finally, my eyes swept over Julian, who was still moaning on the ground, his face a bloody mess. I calmly adjusted the collar of my suit, which had gotten slightly rumpled in the scuffle. My tone was quiet but carried an undeniable weight. "Mr. Sterling." Richard flinched, bowing even lower. "Why, yes, Mr. Pierce. Anything you say. Clean this up." I gestured to Julian on the floor. "And get your people in line. I don't want to see anyone who isn't supposed to be here ever again." Yes, of course, it will never happen again." As if granted a pardon, Richard nodded frantically, then waved frantically at security to drag the barely conscious Julian out like a sack of garbage. I gave Ava one last look. She was staring up at me, her eyes a complex storm of humiliation, terror, and a tiny, almost imperceptible spark of hatred. The chat was still scrolling at lightning speed. "That's it. He's not going to beat him up some more." I get the feeling the fiancé is bad news too. Logan's got a 10-foot-tall presence today. I pull my gaze away, a cold smile touching my lips. That's it. Not even close. This was just the beginning. The real show was just getting started. A few days after the disastrous engagement party, I had my assistant, Ethan, arrange a date with Ava. We were at a high-end restaurant on the top floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, panoramic windows offering a glittering view of the city at night. The table was set with a crisp white cloth and gleaming silverware. The exquisite appetizers sat untouched. The atmosphere was so cold you could have flash-frozen the foie gras on the plate. Ava sat across from me in a simple lavender dress, her hair pulled back neatly. But the rigid set of her spine and the white-knuckled grip she had on her butter knife betrayed the tension and resentment churning inside her. She stared down at the table the entire time, refusing to meet my eyes, as if the floral centerpiece was more fascinating than I was. LOL, this is the most awkward date ever. Are they having a staring contest with the breadsticks? The look on her face says I was forced into this, and I am living for it, Logan. Food is life. Woman, what woman? I cut into my steak with slow, deliberate movements, unbothered by her silent protest. It was childish and pathetic. Just then, her phone, lying face down on the table, began to vibrate, a low hum against the linen. She glanced at the caller ID, and her face instantly changed. Her hand shot out to flip the phone over, her fingertips trembling. I looked up, my gaze cool and penetrating. The phone buzzed stubbornly. Once, twice. Not gonna get that, I asked, dabbing my lips with a napkin. It's a sales call, she said, her voice tight and dry. Oh, I let the single syllable hang in the air, laced with an authority that allowed no argument. Answer it. On speaker. Ava's head snapped up, her eyes wide with a mix of pleading and panic. I just stared back at her, my expression unyielding. As she hesitated, the call went to voicemail. Just as a flicker of relief crossed her face, it started ringing again, persistent and demanding. It's totally Julian calling. OMG, this is going to be juicy. Put on speaker. Yes, put it on speaker. We want to hear. I'll bet you $5 it's that drama queen Julian. Under my unwavering stare, Ava's trembling fingers finally gave in. As if all the strength had been drained from her body, she tapped the screen, accepting the call and pressing the speakerphone icon. Julian's voice immediately filled the silence. It was tearful, weak, and pathetic. In the background, there was the faint sound of wind. Ava, Ava, you finally answered. His speech was broken, as if every word was a struggle. I'm in so much pain. I don't think I can go on. Ava's face went chalk white, her lips parting silently. After that day, I've been living in hell. I took a bunch of pills, but it didn't help. Julian's voice hitched with a sickening, desperate sob. The doctor said I have a severe depressive episode with strong suicidal tendencies. Ava, I think I'm really going to die. Julian, Ava's voice was a choked whisper on the verge of shattering. Don't do anything stupid. What's the point of living without you? His voice suddenly grew agitated. Ava, please, will you come see me just one last time? Please, I'm on the rooftop. The one we used to go to. If you don't come, I'm going to jump. I've had enough. No, don't. Julian, don't you dare. Ava shot to her feet, the legs of her chair screeching against the polished floor. Her face was ashen, her eyes rimmed with red. One hand flew to her mouth while the other fumbled for the phone, ready to hang up and bolt. The entire restaurant was now staring at our table. Here we go. The emotional blackmail has arrived, right on schedule. Threatening suicide is the lowest of the low. Don't you fall for it, girl. It's a trap. Logan, do something. You can't let her go. Just as she turned to run. Ava. My voice was quiet, almost devoid of anger, but it landed like a wall of ice, stopping her in her tracks. Her body went rigid. She didn't turn around, but I could see her shoulders trembling as a war raged within her. I didn't get up. I didn't grab her. I simply picked up my wine glass, swirling the deep red liquid inside. I watched the wine cling to the crystal. My tone is casual, as if I were commenting on the weather. Think carefully, if you dare to walk out that door tonight. I paused, finally lifting my eyes to her stiff, retreating back. Every word landed with the force of a hammer blow in the silent restaurant. Before the sun rises tomorrow, I will have every Sterling Industries project frozen. The banks will receive notice to call in every single one of your loans. And that pathetic stock price your family is so proud of, it will be worth less than toilet paper. Your father, your family, everyone with the Sterling name. My voice dropped, becoming even colder. We'll be out on the street begging. Then they'll learn what real desperation feels like. Ava's body shuddered violently, as if struck by an invisible sledgehammer. Slowly, agonizingly, she turned to face me. The color had completely drained from her face, silent tears carving tracks down her cheeks. She looked at me with an expression of utter terror and disbelief. On the phone, Julian was still wailing. Ava, why aren't you saying anything? Are you coming? Are you really abandoning me? Are you trying to kill me? His voice grated in the quiet, elegant space. Ava looked like a ghost, her eyes hollow as she stared at me, as if seeing through me to the impending collapse of her entire world. The knuckles of the hand gripping her phone were white from the strain. A few seconds of dead silence passed. Finally, as if every bone in her body had dissolved, her arm dropped to her side. Using the last ounce of her strength, she spoke to the man on the phone, the man who was still threatening to kill himself for her. Her voice was raw and broken. Julian, I'm sorry. Forget about me. Then she stabbed at the screen, ending the call as if it took every last bit of her will to live. The world went quiet. The phone slipped from her trembling hand, landing with a soft thud on the plush carpet. She collapsed back into her chair as if her spine had been removed, wrapping her arms tightly around herself. She bowed her head and began to sob, not loudly, but with deep, shoulder-shaking agony. Why, yes, she hung up sweet. Guess the choice between a boyfriend and total family annihilation will clear a girl's head. Boss Logan for the win. One sentence to decide life or death. She's crying her eyes out, but why do I feel so satisfied? Julian can go jump for all I care. Don't interrupt our revenge plot. That's some serious power. Logan is a beast. I watched her break down, my expression cold, my heart unmoved. A waiter cautiously approached, picked up the phone, and placed it respectfully on the table before retreating silently. I raised my glass in a mock toast, my voice flat and emotionless. Now, can we finally have a peaceful dinner? After that unforgettable dinner, my re-education of Ava began in earnest. It was no longer confined to the occasional date, but seeped into every corner of her existence. On the surface, her freedom wasn't restricted, but that was just an illusion. My assistant, Ethan, would coincidentally appear at Sterling Industries to discuss partnership details with Richard, details that held the Sterling family's fate in a chokehold. Every time Ethan left, Richard's forced smile would crumble a little more, and he would, in turn, apply more pressure on Ava. Ava, we can't afford to offend the Pierces. Can't you just be a little more compliant? For me, for the family. Forget about that Julian Vance. He's poison. Words like these became a constant hum in her ears. The spending records from her secondary credit card landed on my desk in real time. Any attempt she made to contact old friends was flagged immediately. She was a canary trapped in an invisible cage. Every struggle only tightened the silken threads binding her, and by extension, the noose around the Sterling family's neck. At night, in the privacy of my home, the training was more direct. I never used violence. Instead, I used a cold, absolute control. A single look, a simple gesture, demanded her complete obedience. Every forced intimacy, every moment she had to submit, chipped away at her pride, pushing her deeper into despair and a twisted sort of dependence. She began to instinctively lower her gaze in my presence. Her voice grew softer. Sometimes, if I suddenly looked at her, I could see a faint, almost imperceptible tremor run through her body. This level of control is making my skin crawl. Is he taming a wild animal? Not gonna lie. It's kinda hot. She's miserable, but she made her bed when she chose the wrong guy. Is this the start of Stockholm Syndrome? One afternoon, I took Ava to the opening of a private art gallery. She wore a white gown I had selected for her makeup flawless. She clung to my arm, a well-practiced, pleasant smile fixed on her face as she navigated the sea of sycophants and social climbers. While I was speaking with the gallery owner, a figure darted out from a shadowed corner and seized Ava's wrist. It was Julian. He looked worse than ever, gaunt and haggard, his eyes sunken, a scruffy beard shadowing his jaw. His expensive suit was wrinkled and stained. He gripped Ava's arm tightly, his eyes blazing with a toxic mix of anger, desperation, and a wild, obsessive fixation. "Ava," he rasped, his voice choked with emotion. "Why? Why won't you answer my calls? Why did you block me? Tell me, did he make you do it? Is he threatening your family?" Ava, terrified by his sudden appearance, went sheet white. His grip was painful, and she frantically tried to pull her arm away, her eyes darting around the room, searching for me. "Julian, let go. Let go of me," she pleaded in a harsh whisper, terrified of drawing attention. "I won't. Not until you tell me the truth." Julian's voice rose, his emotions spiraling out of control, causing a few heads to turn. "Look at you. You're not the Ava I knew. You're like a doll with no soul. What has he done to you?" He reached out to touch her pale cheek, but she recoiled in horror. WTF, the ex-boyfriend is back on the scene. This guy just doesn't give up. Making a scene in public like this is so trashy. "Ava, call security. What are you waiting for?" Just then, I concluded my conversation and walked calmly back toward them. The crowd parted from me instinctively. My gaze fell on Julian's hand clamped around Ava's wrist, and my eyes went razor sharp. Seeing me, Julian, like a cornered animal, didn't let go. He pulled Ava closer, snarling at me. "Pierce, what did you do to her? You're a monster. All you know is how to use your power to crush people." I didn't get angry. A faint, mocking smile even touched my lips. My gaze, however, went right past him, locking onto the trembling, terrified Ava. "Ava," I said. My voice was calm, but it struck her frayed nerves with the force of a physical blow. "Tell him. Her body jolted. She looked from the manic Julian to me, my face impassive but my eyes as cold as a winter grave. Richard's pleading face, the teetering empire of Sterling Industries, the suffocating control of the past weeks. It all flashed through her mind. "Ava, don't be afraid," Julian urged. Tell him you don't love him. You love me." Ava squeezed her eyes shut, her long lashes trembling. When she opened them again, they were filled with a dead, shattered resolve. With a sudden, violent wrench, she tore her arm from his grasp. The force of the movement made her stumble, and I reached out, my hand landing firmly on her waist to steady her. She flinched at my touch, but didn't dare pull away. She lifted her head and looked directly at Julian. Her voice was hoarse, but unervingly clear, each word seeming to cost her everything she had left. "Julian, go home. It's Logan I love. Please, don't ever bother me again." Silence. The frantic anger on Julian's face froze, melting into utter shock and disbelief, as if he'd just heard a foreign language. He stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time, his lips trembling, unable to speak. The surrounding guests held their breath. My hand tightened on Ava's waist, pulling her flush against my side in a clear display of ownership. I looked at the ashen-faced Julian, my voice dripping with ice. "You hurt her." Those 3 words seemed to snap him out of his trance. The shock in his eyes morphed into pure, venomous despair. He shot Ava one last look, a look that promised retribution, then turned and stumbled away, disappearing through the crowd. Watching him leave, Ava's body went limp. The only thing holding her up was my arm around her. Her face was transparently pale, her eyes vacant, as if her soul had just walked out the door with him. Wow, right for the jugular. I mean, she said what she had to say, brutal. That look on Julian's face. I almost feel bad for him. Almost. Is it over? Has she finally been broken? Logan, not a huge blow, but maximum emotional damage. The chat is loving this more. Ignoring the curious stares, I leaned down, my lips close to her ear. In a voice only she could hear, I delivered my cold verdict. Adequate performance. Ava's body trembled violently in my arms. Her empty eyes instantly filled with tears, but she bit down hard on her lip, refusing to let them fall. I kept my arm around her and turned back to the party, nodding politely to the other guests, as if nothing more than a minor, insignificant interruption had just occurred, and she was nothing more than a beautiful, obedient trophy in my arms, one whose ownership I had just publicly demonstrated. 5 after the gallery incident, a strange, unsettling peace descended. Ava became even quieter, like a beautiful porcelain doll devoid of life. She complied with my every demand, never resisting, never even showing sadness. Her eyes, however, held a new depth, a cold, hard flicker that would occasionally surface before disappearing. I paid no mind. Even a cornered rabbit will bite. As long as she remained under my control, a little turbulence beneath the surface was irrelevant. Until this afternoon, Ava and I were in my penthouse office at Pierce Corp, reviewing some documents. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. Suddenly, Ethan knocked and entered without waiting for permission, his face grim. He strode to the wall-mounted smart TV and turned it on. "Mr. Pierce, you need to see this," he said, his voice urgent. The screen lit up, displaying a popular live-streaming platform. The title of the feed was sensational, designed for maximum clicks. Tycoon's Hostage Bride, A Final Plea, Live Rooftop Suicide. The camera was shaky, the audio filled with the howl of the wind at the edge of a skyscraper. In the center of the frame was Julian. He looked completely unhinged, worse than before. His hair was a wild mess, his eyes were bloodshot, and tears streamed down his face. He was screaming into his phone's camera. "Ava! Ava! Do you see me? I'm here, the place where we had our first date." He lurched forward, kicking a few loose pebbles off the ledge, the motion stomach-turning to watch. "I'm giving you one last chance. 1 hour. That's all you get," he shrieked, waving his arms like a madman. "If you don't come, if you don't tell everyone that you're leaving that monster Logan, I'll jump. I swear I'll do it. Let the whole world see how the Pierce family drives a man to his death," he roared, spittle flying from his lips. "HOLY crap," He's live streaming his own suicide. Julian has completely lost his mind. This is the ultimate emotional blackmail. He's going scorched earth. Someone call the cops. Get him down from there. The moment the image appeared, Ava let out a small, strangled gasp. She shot up from the couch, her face draining of all color as the papers in her lap scattered across the floor. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with sheer terror. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably, as if she might collapse at any moment. Julian, no, no, she whispered, tears instantly flooding her eyes, her gaze locked on the frantic figure on the screen. On pure instinct, she stumbled toward the office door, a single thought consuming her. I have to stop him. She only made it 2 steps. Ahem. A soft cough came from my direction. It was quiet, almost casual, but it acted like an invisible chain, freezing her in place. Ava stopped dead, a puppet whose strings had been yanked taut. Stiffly, slowly, she turned her head to look at me. I was still sitting in my large executive chair, my posture unchanged. I wasn't even looking at her. My eyes were fixed on my computer screen, as if I were handling the most mundane of business tasks. The only sign of my attention was the rhythmic, almost unconscious tapping of my fingertips on the polished surface of my desk. Tap, tap, tap. In the otherwise silent office, punctuated only by Julian's frantic screams from the TV, the soft sound was like a hammer pounding on Ava's heart. She looked at my cold, calm profile, then back at the television, where Julian teetered on the brink of death. On one side, her hysterical true love was threatening to die for her. On the other, her stone-faced fiancé issued a silent, unyielding warning. Her family's survival, her father's pleading face, the humiliation and fear of the past weeks, and Logan's terrifying power to utterly destroy them. All of it collided in her mind. She was shaking like a leaf in a storm, her face bloodless. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she bit her lip so hard she drew blood, stifling the sobs that threatened to escape. Go, and the Sterling family is finished. She and everyone she loved would be dragged down to hell. Don't go, and Julian might actually die, shackling her with guilt for the rest of her life. The choice was a form of torture. Go, you have to go, it's a human life. Don't go. It's a manipulative trap. Logan is so cold-blooded. He doesn't even care. She's about to have a complete breakdown. This is impossible. My money's on her staying put. She's too scared. The seconds ticked by. On the screen, Julian's pleas grew more desperate and unhinged. Ava, I know you're watching. You've really made your choice, haven't you? You're staying with that monster. Fine, fine. Then I'll die for you to see. I'll haunt you for the rest of your life. He started making more reckless moves, stepping onto the low parapet wall with one foot, spreading his arms wide as his body swayed in the wind. Ava's heart hammered against her ribs. She squeezed her eyes shut, her nails digging so deep in her palms that they left bloody crescents. Finally, as if her entire being had been hollowed out, her body went slack. She crumpled back onto the sofa, burying her face in her trembling hands and letting out a muffled, animalistic whimper of absolute despair. She had chosen submission, to power, to reality, to a price she was unwilling to pay. On the TV, Julian saw his viewer count skyrocketing, but saw no sign of the one person he was waiting for. The mania in his eyes was finally consumed by a twisted, absolute hopelessness. Ava, Logan, you will pay for this, he screamed, a final chilling curse. In his emotional state, his foot slipped, or perhaps he truly meant to do it, and his body pitched forward. The camera spun wildly, a blur of sky and concrete. A sickening, dull thud echoed from the phone's microphone, and the live feed went black. The office was plunged into a dead, ringing silence, broken only by Ava's shattered, suppressed sobs. She lifted her head, her gaze fixed on the dark screen, her eyes terrifyingly empty, as if her soul had just plummeted with him. He actually jumped. Holy SD, he really did it. He was annoying as hell, but he didn't deserve to die. Live-streamed suicide. That's beyond messed up. Logan didn't even flinch the entire time. That level of composure is terrifying. I slowly raised my head, my eyes finally moving from my computer to the blank television screen. My expression was unreadable. Then, my gaze shifted to Ava, who was collapsed on the couch, lost in a storm of tearful despair. After a few seconds of silence, I spoke. My voice was calm, even tinged with a cold, dismissive irony. There, quiet now. Julian's death was a stone thrown into a deep lake. It made waves, but the ripples quickly subsided. The police ruled it an accidental fall. The media frenzy lasted a few days before being swept away by the next big story. On the surface, everything returned to normal. Ava became unervingly docile. She no longer showed any sign of rebellion or even grief. She played the part of the future Mrs. Pierce to perfection, accompanying me to events with a graceful smile, her manners impeccable. She complied with my every request, public or private, with absolute obedience. At night, she became almost unnaturally eager and cooperative, though deep within her seemingly passionate eyes, there was a flash of something cold and robotic, a profound numbness. Is she completely broken now? This quiet is kind of freaking me out. Something's not right here. The calm before the storm. I bet you she's planning something big. She began visiting her family more often, under the pretext of checking on my father and keeping him updated. Richard Sterling, initially flattered by his daughter's sudden filial piety, grew emotional, constantly repeating, "Ava, you've finally matured, and the Sterling family is counting on you." After several such visits, during a private meeting, Ava dismissed the household staff. The gentle mask fell from her face, replaced by a chilling, desperate intensity. "Dad, we can't go on like this," she said, her voice a low, venomous whisper. "Logan is a demon. Julian is dead, and we're next. Once he gets tired of me, he'll destroy us without a second thought." Richard was taken aback by the ruthless glint in his daughter's eyes. "Ava, what are you?" "We have to strike first," Ava hissed, grabbing her father's arm, her nails digging into his flesh. "He has to die. Only then can I inherit the Pierce fortune as his grieving widow. Only then will the Sterling family truly be safe." Seeing this transformation in Ava, a look of profound satisfaction spread across Richard's face. "You finally understand," he said. He reached into his pocket and carefully produced a small glass vial wrapped in velvet. It contained a clear, odorless liquid. "This is called Spectre. I acquired it on the black market. A few drops are all it takes. It induces heart failure within hours, making it look like a natural death." Ava stared at the vial, her expression stunned. "Dad, you had this." Richard tapped the table gently, a faint smile on his lips. "You were always too sentimental. I never dared to tell you about this contingency plan, but now, the time is right. I trust you won't disappoint me. Will you, Ava?" Staring at her father's benevolent smile, Ava's eyes hardened with a fanatical, crazed determination. "It's his birthday gala next week. I'll pour his drink myself. Dad, you just need to get me what I need. Leave the rest to me." As his daughter looked at him with that wild, resolute gaze, Richard Sterling nodded, completely satisfied. HYST. The dad was the one with the poison all along. He pretended to be a coward, but he was the most ruthless one. Pushing his own daughter to commit murder, what a piece of work. It's clear now, she's just the disposable tool he's using to get the job done. Of course, every word of this conversation was transmitted from the listening devices I had planted in the Sterling residence and fed directly to me. I sat in my study, listening to the recording of the father-daughter duo's perfect little murder plot, and a cold smile spread across my face. The birthday gala was held at the Pierce family estate, a spectacle of glittering chandeliers and champagne towers. Ava was stunning in a blood-red evening gown, her smile bright and her makeup flawless. She moved through the crowd on my arm, the very picture of a loving fiancé, graciously accepting blessings and envious glances. She was a consummate actress. Her eyes even held a convincing shimmer of adoration whenever she looked at me. She deserves an Oscar for this performance. Oh well, Logan's just playing along. I'm so nervous right now. Where's the poison? Show me the poison. As the party reached its peak, a massive, multi-tiered cake was wheeled out. Amid the applause and cheers, Ava personally brought 2 glasses of champagne, handing one to me and keeping the other. She gazed up at me, her eyes sparkling, her smile sweet. "Logan, happy birthday. To us. Forever." She tilted her glass toward me in a toast. I held her gaze, staring so intently that her smile began to falter, a flicker of panic entering her eyes. Only then did I slowly smile back and take the glass. Thank you. As our arms intertwined to drink, I feigned a moment of recollection. In a single, fluid motion, my wrist turned inward, subtly angling the rim of my glass, while my other hand gently brushed against her elbow. The movement was imperceptible, as smooth and natural as breathing. Ava's entire focus was on me, on whether I would drink, on flawlessly executing her final act. She never noticed the microscopic exchange. We smiled at each other, the perfect couple, and drained our glasses. He drank it. They both drank it. Wait, did the camera just glitch? I think I saw his hand move just now. Did he switch them? Did he? The champagne was cold against my throat. Ava set down her empty glass, her face showing a mixture of triumphant relief and a barely concealed, eager anticipation. She even leaned into my embrace as the guests around us cheered. A few minutes later, her face began to pale. A fine sheen of sweat appeared on her forehead. She swayed slightly, looking dizzy, and her hand instinctively went to her chest as her breathing grew shallow. What's wrong? Not feeling well? I asked, my arm tightening around her. My voice was full of concern, but my eyes were like chips of ice. No, I'm fine. She forced a smile, but it quickly twisted into a pained grimace. Maybe I had a little too much to drink. Her words started to tremble. Her chest heaved, and her face went from white to a sickly shade of blue, her lips losing all color. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my suit jacket. Her eyes were wide, staring at me, filled with a dawning, absolute horror, disbelief, and the soul-shattering despair of sudden understanding. The wine, she choked out, the words barely audible. What about the wine? I whispered, leaning close to her so only she could hear. Is there something wrong with the taste? My dear Ava, her body went rigid, then began to convulse violently. She crumpled, knocking over a nearby table with a crash of breaking china that silenced the room. The guests gasped in horror, surging forward. Ava, what's happening? Richard Sterling screamed, shoving his way through the crowd, his face a mask of terror. I immediately dropped to my knees, cradling her spasming body, my face a perfect picture of panic and fear as I roared at the onlookers. Call a doctor. Somebody call 911. Call the police now. It was the poison. She's the one who was poisoned. But Logan is fine. So he really did switch the glasses. My God, she played herself. The ambulance and police arrived quickly, but by the time they got Ava onto a stretcher, she had stopped breathing. Her once beautiful eyes were wide open, frozen in a final, silent scream of terror and disbelief. The police investigation was swift and decisive. The poisoned champagne glass, combined with traces of the rare toxin found under Ava's fingernails, formed an ironclad case. Following the trail, they quickly uncovered Richard Sterling's black market purchase of Spectre and the encrypted calls arranging it. When combined with the anonymous security footage I provided of their planning sessions, the truth became horrifyingly clear. Ava Sterling and her father, Richard, had conspired to murder Logan Pierce to seize his family's fortune. But in a tragic twist of fate, Ava had accidentally consumed the poison herself. In the interrogation room, Richard Sterling broke down completely, confessing to everything in a blubbering, incoherent mess. But it was far too late. Just as I thought, Logan played them perfectly. What a count to move. Genius. The Sterlings were both greedy and stupid. The perfect crime. No, the perfect Uno reverse card. With the investigation closed, Ava Sterling was dead by her own hand, and Richard Sterling was sentenced to life in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Sterling Industries was left rudderless. The stock price evaporated overnight, and creditors swarmed. As the victim and Ava's legal fiancé, I initiated proceedings to absorb the collapsing company. The takeover was ruthless and breathtakingly fast. Within a week, the once prominent Sterling family was nothing but a footnote in business history. Their entire empire was assimilated into the vast portfolio of Pierce Corp. A few days later, I stood alone in my office on the top floor of the Piers Corp Tower. The city lights glittered below, a galaxy of stars conquered and laid at my feet. Ethan entered silently. "Mr. Piers," he reported respectfully, "all legal proceedings are complete. Sterling Industries no longer exists." I swirled the red wine in my glass, watching the liquid stain the crystal in a perfect arc. I didn't turn around. "Good," was all I said. Outside, the neon lights of the city painted streaks across the glass, outlining the shape of a cold, glittering world that was now mine to command. Congrats to Boss Logan on the successful acquisition. The empire expands. His strategy, his nerve, it's flawless. The chat officially signs off. GG's Logan.